Hello? I cannot hear anything.
We haven't started yet.
Oh.
Where are you? Did you hear that?
What?
Is it ready where you're at?
It's really difficult to hear.
My mic's not on yet.
It's on the
Can you hear me now?
That's a little bit better.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you, Chair.
Thank you. Ask him where he's at. He didn't answer. Hello?
He's up north, isn't he?
Hong? Time.
You haven't been there for a long time, have you?
No, I haven't. Not since I got the dog.
You know,
I
you
went,
could have someone watch the dog and you could go.
not on the airplane. You have to put him in the... Okay, I have, on my watch, I have it's over 4:30, so. Okay, I will call the Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee to order. Is there public comment? Come on up. Yep.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Pass it.
I was glad that you were having a meeting of the Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee because I have sent an email to the City Council, not received an answer, and I wanted to bring it to your attention because I know that you're all busy people. And this is the short story. A few weeks ago, I came to the meeting about Sound Transit and the light rail and the possibility that they were going to take over one of two sites in Federal Way, besides the fact that they are going to take over our downtown area for several years, and that they tend to offer properties near their transit centers, particularly to nonprofits and to places that offer multifamily housing. So I sent an email to the school district because I had heard a rumor about the rates of multifamily housing school impact fees not being enough to meet the costs of the students. And that indeed is what is happening, that we've got more students coming in per unit of multifamily housing than just about anybody else, if not anybody else in King County. And the handout that I provided to the council is from a letter that Sally McLean sent to Bob Kellogg, in which she's got the student-generated rate per unit of multifamily housing
Yeah,
built
I saw this.
on the left, and then the horizontal is a different municipalities, including the King County average, which is that orange line. It's about 0.35 students per unit, while Federal Way is more than 3 times higher at approximately 1.2 students generated per unit of multifamily housing built. So the reason I'm here, because you're the finance et cetera committee is this, that Ms. McLean also said that the City of Federal Way Ordinance number 95-249 provides an additional 50% discount for multifamily fees in the downtown core, which is bad news for us, because we've got to pay for the kids' schools. I'm willing to pay for kids' schools, but I don't see why we should give an additional 50% discount on multifamily school impact fees in the downtown core. So I'm hoping that the council will address this issue, because I think it is something that will help the city be a better city if we can adequately pay for good schooling for the kids that come in, all of the kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we will go with the agenda. Approval of the summary of minutes, September 24th, 2019. Anybody have any questions about them? You want to make a motion?
Sure. I make motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, September 24th, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to surplus public works parks vehicles. Item B.
Good evening, Chair, Deputy Mayor,
Thank you.
council members. So tonight in front of you is a request to surplus one of the current public works vehicles to the Parks Department and replace that. So as background for you, as part of the 2019-2020 budget, council approved replacing one of the streets inspectors trucks, and that has been done. That's a truck that had approximately 90,000 miles on it. It was at the end of its life as an emergency vehicle. That being said, it's still better shape than the one that is currently in the parks inventory. So we've completed that. We have the new inspector truck on hand. So previously, back in 2000, I believe it was 12, the Parks Department had requested permission to surplus Parks Truck 121-1, which is a 2004 Ford 4x2 F-150. And council approved both replacement of that vehicle as well as retaining the vehicle that was supposed to be surplused. So they effectively used the reserves to buy a new vehicle but kept the old vehicle as opposed to getting rid of the old vehicle. And that was, like I said, back in 2011-12 timeframe. That truck 121 is still in operation today, the one that was replaced on paper. It's still in place. It's been in a couple of accidents. It has some pretty severe body damage as well as the transmission's failing, and there's some other mechanical failures with that truck that, while it's being used, it's at the end of its life. So what we are requesting permission to do is council had previously authorized surplusing truck 8228-1, which was the Public Works Inspector's truck. What we're asking for permission to do is actually retain that truck that council previously authorized us to surplus, and instead surplus the one with a whole bunch of damage, that truck 121. So in the end, we will end up with the same total number of vehicles that the council previously authorized. We're not keeping an extra vehicle. I want to make sure I'm very clear about that. What we're doing is we're getting rid of the old one and then keeping the better of the worst two trucks, if that makes sense. So before you, there's two options. One is to authorize us to transfer this vehicle to the Parks Department and surplus the vehicle that's truly at the end of its life, or not authorize that. And effectively what that would do is we would follow council's previous direction to surplus the Public Works Inspector truck that was replaced. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor?
How much is it worth?
Which one?
121.
So we surplus them through the state. We do it through DES, and they're the ones that actually will set the price once they see it. Trucks like that, in recent, we get anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500. I mean, someone's buying it for parts at this point.
Is 8228 safe to drive?
8228 has just about 90,000 miles on it. Mechanically, it is safe. We have all of the vehicles within the city fleet go through a DOT inspection annually, so it is safe to drive. It's safe to operate. The big discriminator that we use is the inspector vehicles, and some of our other fleet within Public Works has to be emergency response ready, which means snow and ice, windstorm, that sort of event. So we have a higher threshold of what's allowable on those vehicles. So this inspector vehicle doesn't meet that threshold anymore. But that being said, it's still on par with probably 90% of the vehicles on the road. So it's still the right move,
Just
in my
checking.
opinion.
Okay,
Sure.
thanks.
What kind of a car is the 8228?
That is a 2004 Ford F-150,
they're the
4x4.
Oh.
They are. It has way less miles on it. So the Parks one has about 150,000 miles on it. This one has about 90. The Parks one's been in, I believe, 3 accidents at this point, and this one's been in 0. And this one has a transmission that's functional.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Each year, the vehicle 828, I know it's still drivable, but what do you think, how long this thing will last?
That's a hard question because, I mean, it could be in an accident tomorrow for all that I know. But from a mechanical perspective, what I can tell you is it's in substantially better condition than the 121 that we're proposing to get rid of. It's a sound truck. We've been using it as an inspector truck, so it hasn't seen a lot of heavy maintenance. It hasn't seen heavy loads in it. It is used in 4x4 fairly frequently, but it doesn't see that heavy duty use like the 121 does. Like I said, it passed the DOT inspection. There's no major maintenance that's in our system as being needed to be done. So, the point I'm comfortable with right now is telling you it's in good condition as I'm sitting here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I move to forward the option to November 5th, 2019 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you voting? Are you going to
Huh?
vote? Hon, are you going to vote?
Yes, I did. Aye.
Okay, didn't hear you, sorry. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item C.
And Chair, just to be clear, did you move option 1 or option 2 to council?
What was on here?
So option 1 was on here, but I thought I heard you say option 2.
No, I recommended what it said here.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item C, the PAC budget.
Good afternoon. We are here to propose the 2020 Federal Way PAC budget, that you have some information in front of you. And we had a presentation, but have a couple of difficulties. So we're available for any questions or anything that you have at this point in time. This being Spectra's first kind of go at this, this will be kind of a process that we're looking for feedback and anything that you can provide as us moving forward on how you would like to see this in the future.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on having a balanced budget.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you explain to me what's the capital outlay of 169,000? What is that for?
So the capital outlay, a majority, I would say 95% of that is for a national marketing campaign and marketing campaign for the PAC. Currently, right now, and has historically been done, is all the marketing for the PAC has been done on an event-by-event basis. So what we're looking at is with Spectra's resources and national and regional event planners, small market meeting places, and just to advertise the building and the venue as a whole for the PAC.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to see a balanced budget. Is there anything else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The theater event fees doubled from 150 to 300, I guess? Or is the 150 an amended budget amount?
So the 2019, the 150 was what was, amended for 2019, and we're looking to double that with increased number of events and the type of events that we are anticipating and forecasting to host.
The initial 2019 budget listed all of the revenues under the ticketing sales and fees. And so in the amended 2019 budget, it shows those broken down into ticketing sales and fees and other line items. And then you'll see as we move into 2020, there is about a $150,000 increase in those fees coming in. And those are revenues generated through ticket sales, box office, those kinds of things.
So if you don't have the lineup though for 2020, what happens? Or do you already know?
No, currently we do not have our 2020 lineup, but we are, based on kind of some historical data and what we're seeing in increasing from 2017, 18, and 19, that's what we're looking and anticipating, as well as an increase interest and bookings in our event space for wedding receptions, conferences, those types of things.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you took over the running of the PAC. How do you feel it's going?
Challenging. The PAC's been open 26 months. Our company's been here 13 months. But we're moving in the right direction. As we stated, I think it was last month, that we as Spectra Venue Management have a fiduciary responsibility to the city and its residents to minimize that subsidy of the PAC, to look at cost savings, to bring quality entertainment both nationally, regionally, and locally here to the PAC to show what a great facility that we have. We've had some of our challenges, but we've had some great successes. I mean, we have a sign now. We've purchased benches and seating. When people come in, they have a good customer service experience. We've increased monitors in the lobby area. And just have looked at a lot of different assets and different things that the folks and our customers are telling us that they like to see when they come to a venue. Overall, it's been very positive. We have had some hurdles and some speed bumps, but we can't fix them if we don't know about them. And at the end of the day, we're here to be transparent. We're here to be open. And good or bad, we're looking for the feedback on how we can continue to make this a great entertainment facility in Federal Way.
And I think most of us are hoping that you do the same thing, and we're glad that you're there. You have Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. On the advertising, it's going from 2,221 to 15,000? Is that what groups will pay you for advertising, or?
No, that is advertising that we look to go out and get a sponsor for. So if it was McDonald's, for an example, so increase that's revenue coming in that we're looking for sponsorship.
How would we know if someone has sponsored something? Is it in the, you don't hang it on the wall of the PAC like you would at a stadium, a sports stadium?
We may, however tactfully, it's not going to look like, a NASCAR, no offense to NASCAR, or a minor league baseball stadium. But yes, we would go out and sell, whether it's a group for their logo to be at the bar or concession area. We might do a window cling that might be XYZ dollars for 6 months. It might be something on the back of the ticket, those types of things. And we could possibly have, again, we're not going to have banners all over the PAC to make it look gaudy, but it will be done tactfully.
So do you think that's reasonable to get that? It's quite an increase.
I think it is. I think, it's a little low. Obviously, our number one goal is naming rights, but, we have to start somewhere. We do have a little bit of interest with some local groups with some smaller amounts. Again, whether it's the back of the ticket in a program, sponsoring a specific event, or those types of things.
Okay,
I bought 3 chairs.
I know. One more question. Do you have any guidelines on who could potentially be a sponsor? I'm thinking of, trying to make sure that we don't have anything that would upset our citizens.
Sure. No, we, part of our contract and everything that we do is we vet those individuals or organizations, and we want to make sure that it's not offensive, it has to be in good taste and within the overall concept and mission of the city and the PAC.
All right, great, thank you.
Anything else, anybody? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your update.
Thank you.
Moving on to item D, ordinance 2019-2020 budget amendment.
Good evening, Chair Duclos, council committee members, and the public. Ade is out at a LEF conference this week, and so I'm here presenting for him.
Well, we'll excuse that.
So before you is the 2019-20 biennial budget amendment ordinance. Public hearings will be held November 5th, the 19th of 2019, with enactment on December 3rd of 2019. And if you look at page 20, 21, and 22 of the ordinance, you'll see Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and Exhibit C. Mm-hmm. Exhibit A is the original adopted ordinance. Exhibit B would have been the amended ordinance that occurred in April. And Exhibit C is the current ordinance that we have proposed before you right now. If you look on page 15, we have a memo there before you that lays out some of the changes that are in this amended ordinance. And per RCW 35.34.130, a city must review and modify the budget before the end of the first year of the biennium. And so that's why we're here before you right now to amend the budget. And on page 22, which is Exhibit C that I had mentioned, that's the full exhibit with each of the individual funds. And I just wanted to let you know that per the fund balance reserve policy that council set, per resolution 18732, each of the individual funds with the changes that have been made are in accordance with the reserve policy that you have set. So for example, if you look on page 22 in the general fund, the ending fund balance at the end of 2020 is $9,010,171. And per the reserve fund balance policy that council set, you require that the general fund be at $9 million. Similarly, the street fund right below that, the reserve fund balance policy says that it needs to be at $500,000. If you look at that same exhibit, Exhibit C on page 22, you'll see that it's at $516,823. If you turn with me back to page 15 and 16 where that memo is laid out, you'll see some of the changes listed there within this memo. I'll just highlight a few of them. One change that's occurring as part of this ordinance is 1 million being used from REIT. And again, remember that REIT can only be used on construction projects or to pay debt on construction projects. And the 1 million is proposed to be used to pay down the PAC interfund loan that Ade had mentioned at the previous council meetings. We also have giving the Performing Arts and Events Center $800,000 in 2020 as a subsidy for operations. You'll see that the original ask was around $1 million, but we have $800,000 in this amendment. In 2019, we added the $425 that you had already approved on September 17th, and then we also show paying back or forgiving the interfund loan of the $500,000. We also have used the Strategic Reserve Fund, and if you look at the exhibit, you'll see the Strategic Reserve Fund. One of the requirements for the reserve policy is that that fund stays at $3 million. We had used that to buy some of the hotel land back originally, and we've built that fund back up to the $3 million as part of this ordinance adjustment. And so that fund is back at the reserve policy level that you guys had required, that council had required. Additionally, we've added things like copper wire alarm system of $58,200. And I just want to distinguish that from the transfer that I have for copper wire theft of $30,000. That's the actual wire from the copper wire theft. The copper wire alarm system is a separate item. And some of the items that are some of the adjustments that have occurred in order to pay for some of these additions. We increased community development revenue in 2019 by $1.3 million because the projections are coming in higher than what was originally budgeted. And we've talked about that a few times through the monthly financial report. That's offset, though, by a decrease in utility tax by $413,000 in 2019 because the projections are coming in a bit lower due to the weather patterns for electricity and gas. As well as cell phones coming in a little lower on utility tax. And we've mentioned that a few times when we've talked about the monthly financial report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on this ordinance.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Deputy Mayor?
So the $2.2 million that we're going to see in 2020 from savings from the SCORE budget,
Okay.
is this where this money's coming from?
2.2.
The 2020 adjustments?
That has already been accounted for. The SCORE savings, I believe, were accounted for in the adopted budget.
Oh, okay. So let's say that we don't see a savings of 2.2 million, then this budget could possibly be in trouble. Is that what I mean, we've been here before where we've expected something and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we had some issues. So if we don't see the savings that we expect, what will the 2020 budget look like? And will we need to make emergency adjustments?
Yeah, so Ade has already calculated those numbers and is confident that the savings are, that are projected are going to be the savings that occur.
It would be a monthly savings, right? So the whole 2.2 million we won't see until the whole year is over, right?
It's an annual savings.
Any other questions? Would you like to make a recommendation here? Yes, go ahead.
You mind if I ask a question?
Not at all.
We just have it clarifying, because we just noticed it on page 12 of the chart. It shows $1,071,000 on line 39 for the PAC. But yet over on page 15, it shows 800,000 that you just mentioned. Trying to
Yes,
understand where,
We're funding 800,000 as subsidy from the general fund for 2020.
yeah, but on page 12, it shows that they were asking for
We don't have page
1
12.
point.
Yeah, it's right here.
They were
It's
asking
a
for
PAEC budget.
$1,071,000?
Yeah, my understanding is that was communicated, and Ade was communicating that with staff.
We haven't, this is the first we're hearing, so that's a big difference. That's why we're asking, sorry.
Okay.
So it was very briefly and probably a 30-second conversation I had with Ade on Thursday, October 17th. And I had a conference call to follow up, or that I had to go to, because of the difference of $200,000, where that was going to come from. So we just want to make sure that we, as the operators of the PAC, do not fall into a situation like we did a month ago, where we don't have enough money to fund the overall operations of the facility and have to come back to council to ask for additional funds, you know, in quarter 3 or 4, to meet what we're looking to do at the facility.
Yeah, I think we should work that out before we take this to council meeting.
I'm sorry, so are we looking at 2424 versus 2205?
I'm just going off the packet.
Page
Part of our
12.
presentation, the PAC's presentation, is we had a spreadsheet on page 12,
Right.
which shows
Line 39.
line 39, 2020 proposed budget of $1,071,417. And then over on page 15, as part of the background information, kind of towards the bottom of the page, shows transfer of funding to PAC $800,000 in 2020. We don't even know if we're going to hit that number this year. So we just want to, we're being very optimistic and very aggressive. But again, at the end of the day, we don't want to come back to council again, like we did last month.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree, because there's a different, almost $300,000 difference here. Need to- And take a look at the number.
Like Brian said, Ade had discussed this with Brian back on October 17th and mentioned that we were only going to be able to fund 800,000 for 2020 from the general fund.
And we're not going to take any action on this tonight, right? This is just
Well,
discussion.
We are.
We are.
We are.
You are.
Well,
This is an ordinance, so it'll go to council and there'll be a first and second reading. There can be changes in future.
yeah, that's what I mean. It goes to council.
So when a day comes back, can this be discussed? Because, you know, the PAC has to be successful. If they need the money, they need the money. It's our building. We have
Right.
to provide the funding.
Yeah. So we were starting with 800,000, I think. That's what he was able to fund in this adjustment, to keep the general fund at the required reserve fund balance policy.
Well, right now, all we're doing is
Is forwarding it.
we're moving this forward to the council meeting for first reading.
I'm sure you'll be talking to a day, right?
Yes, I will. I will forward that information on to Ade
Okay.
this evening. Yeah.
Thank you.
And he's also available for, we can call in if we needed to, if that was something that we needed to do. But-
Yeah, I just
I
think
don't
we
think
need to
so.
make sure before it comes for its first reading at the next council meeting that we know that the correct numbers.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to hold a public hearing on November 5th and forward the proposed ordinance to the November 19th, 2019 council meeting for first reading.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving on to item D.
Good evening, Chair Duclos and council members. Before you is the ordinance for the property tax levy. This is the property tax levy for 2020. It's based on the 1% increase limit plus new construction. Based on the preliminary information from the King County assessor, this would result in a decrease in the tax rate from 0.97655 per 1,000 of assessed valuation to approximately 0.93395 per 1,000 of assessed valuation. The reason why this rate goes down is because assessed valuation goes up, but the 1% cap is based on 1% of the revenue from the prior year received. And so we can only receive 1% plus new construction on top of the total revenue that we received for the prior year. So the rate can go down, because if assessed values go up, your rate has to go down to keep you at the 1%. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Anybody have any questions? Want to make a motion?
I move to hold a public hearing on November 5th and forward the proposed ordinance to the November 19th, 2019 council meeting for first reading.
And I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to item F, vouchers.
Good evening. Before you are the vouchers for September 2019. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have of any of the individual vouchers.
Deputy Mayor Honda?
I sent an email to a day earlier today. Did that go to you? I didn't even think of sending it to you.
Yes, he
did?
did send it to me. I
Okay.
didn't know if we had time to forward it on, but I do have that voucher here before us tonight.
So I was curious as to why there were at least 3 different vouchers for the same event on the same day.
Yeah, so it's just separate line items that are split out for different types of objects. So like one is for 5 registrations for the conference, and so that's a specific portion of the total. Like 1,546.35 of the total amount
Okay.
is for 5 registrations for the day-long conference.
And then the other amounts were,
Exhibit space was $800, and so that's a separate line item that we pay it out of. And so it will show up multiple times on the listing.
okay. Do you know who we sent to the conference? I'm surprised that we would send 5
Conference?
people.
It's the
The AFA,
I don't have the specific list of attendees, but we can get that to you.
yeah, I'd be interested to see who the city would have sent to something like that.
Okay.
So then we weren't a sponsor of it. We were paying to attend it.
Yes, a portion of it was for paying to attend and for exhibit space.
So there were 3 charges that I looked at, 3 vouchers.
Correct.
And they were all different amounts. But I just wanted to know for sure that we were not a sponsor of it. Or we could have been, I just would like to know.
Yeah, I'll follow up to get you
Okay,
that additional information.
thank you.
Okay, do we have anything else? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to forward the vouchers to November 5th, 2019. And therefore approve.
Second?
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Come on. All right, motion carries. Moving on to the monthly financial report.
Good evening, Chair Duclos, council members. Before you is the September 2019 monthly financial report. I'm going to highlight a few of the areas in this report. The community development permits and fees is 1.2 million, or 58.6% above the 2019 year-to-date budget, and 1.3 million, or 68.9% 2018 year-to-date collections. Some of the major permits and review fees this year include Traditions at Federal Way Senior Housing, DeVita, TILP 348 Office, and Federal Way Premier Storage. One of the other areas that's doing better than 2018 is our business license fees, and it's 16,000, or 9.2% above the 2018 year-to-date collections. And I just wanted to notify you, Ade had brought a couple times to some of the FEDRACs that the city would be going to the state for business licensing services. On October 3rd, the city went live with business licensing services, and that's going well. It's really a one-stop shop for multiple cities that are with the state now, and they can go on and do all the renewals and get their business license in one place, which is a good addition. If you look on page 73 as well, the sales tax is also above 2018 year-to-date actuals by 605,000, or 6.2%, and above 2019 year-to-date budget by 261,000, or 2.6%. And if you see on page 77, there's a split out by types of sales tax that are received, and primarily that increase is due to one-time construction. And so the sales tax increase is increasing due to construction, as well as a little bit in retail trade. If you turn the page with me to page 74, the utility tax revenues received year-to-date as reported on the report total 7.4 million and is 452,000, or 5.8% below 2018 year-to-date actuals, and 619,000, or 7.7% below the 2019 year-to-date budget. And so as you recall, when I was talking about the budget amendment, at the utility tax, we were doing a decrease to the utility tax. This is primarily why, because the electricity and the gas is under the year-to-date budget and under last year's actuals, primarily due to weather, and cellular phone utility tax is down as well. Although real estate excise tax is above year-to-date revenues, and it's above 2018 year-to-date actual by 885,000 and above 2019 year-to-date budget by 1.1 million, or 43.4%. One commercial sale that occurred this month was Rainier Continental Apartments with a total sale of 8.9 million, which equates to about 44,000 in tax received. If you turn with me now to page 84, I'll touch slightly on the Dumas Bay Center. The Dumas Bay Center is continually doing well. The ending fund balance of their fund is 1.69 million with a required fund balance reserve policy of 1.5 million. And so Dumas Bay continues to operate well, continues to bring in revenue and maintain expenditures, and is staying within their fund balance reserve policy. And if you turn to page 86, it's a listing of each of the individual funds. You'll see that the general and street fund's at 7.8 million, which is below the normal reserve balance, but that's fairly typical at this time of the year because next month it will go back above, and that has to do with property taxes received. So we only receive property taxes, primarily the large amounts, two times a year, in April and October. And so you'll see that come back within the reserve policy next month. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about this report.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I was watching a webinar last week on budgeting, and there was a city that did some things with cell phones. I was wondering, do we know how many cell phones are in the city of Federal Way? Like for my house, there's 2 cell phones. Do we know that information, or is there a way to get that kind of information?
Like how many cell towers, for example?
No, actual cell phones, even if they weren't purchased in the city of Federal Way or they don't have their contract in the city of Federal Way? Do Do we have that information? Because there's one city did down in California, and I'm wondering how they had that kind of information.
Interesting.
Yeah,
They had a small tax on it, on each cell phone, because they were losing they were, yeah.
I don't know how to acquire that information, but I can look into it and see if it's something that's available. I
Don't
know
spend
if
too
it-
much time on it.
Yeah, I
was
don't
just
know if
kinda
it's
curious.
proprietary, if it's
Okay.
something that we could even get the information on, but
Yeah.
we can look into it.
We've investigated some along that line. I think California's a different taxing structure,
Oh,
so
okay.
they might get that information from the carriers because they have to provide it to pay the tax. Whereas ours is based entirely on point of sale.
Right.
So clearly the carriers have that information, but whether or not they would give it to us is
Okay.
a different matter.
It was interesting to see what they did with that, and how their citizens were actually accepted it and encouraged it, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
well, they accept anything down in California. Is there anything else? Would you like to make a motion?
I move to forward the September 2019 monthly financial report to the November 5th, 2019 consent agenda for approval.
I'll okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Council member?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to score update.
Good evening, Chair Duclos, council members. Ade just wanted to present some of this information just to show that the ADP continues to go down, which is a good thing. And also to the question of savings, when ADP goes down, that will continue to decrease the cost to the city, because the less people that we have in, the more savings there will be. But you'll see on page 90 that from in August, let's start in July. In July, the ADP was 45. In August, it was 38. And in September, it's down to 36. So the ADP continues to decrease, which is a good thing. But he wanted to, it's a cost thing as far as it makes it beneficial cost-wise for the city. So, so I just wanted to share that information
Can I say
on behalf of Ade.
So I can clearly see it's a cost benefit to not having as many people that score, but from April, a high of 65 to September of 36, what's going on that would have such a decrease of folks that score? Are we using other methods, like home confinement or things like that, or?
I don't think that the change is reflective of a change in incarceration methods. It's the difference in how many people are booked. So crime fluctuates.
Right.
So naturally, but we've also seen a dramatic decrease from the times when we had 70, 80 people in a month, where they're not booking people on minor misdemeanor crimes as much anymore. There's been a policy shift on that point. So these days, to get arrested for like driving while license suspended third, you pretty much have to have done it 20 times or something, or be committing another crime as well. So I think they've been booking fewer people is the answer.
Is that all over King County or just a federal way policy?
All the score cities have definitely been pushing to reduce ADP, and as is King County. King County numbers are down a lot. There's been a shift in attitude towards incarceration generally among prosecutors. I know Dan Satterberg's position has changed how many people are in King County's jail.
Right.
So I think ours has been, we're trying to use our jail money where it matters most, I think, would be the answer. So focusing on DUIs and DV assault and crimes like that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we finished early tonight. there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hahn.
Oops, I'm still live.